And we're live. So chat should be on. I'm a little bit early, so I'll, wait for a couple of minutes to let, people join in. The basic idea here was that I just wanted to kind of wrap things up. So, like we did, we looked at the number strand because that is where the marks are. If you again, this is for ordinary level. So leaving cert maths, if you look at the past papers, you can kind of see that actually, not all, yes, the syllabus is broken into 5 strands, but not all of them get the same amount of marks. So if you look through a couple of past papers, you can basically see that the number strand has the most. Normally about 35%. And again, that does make sense because that is the maths that you'll use. Like most people will use numbers and the number strand maths in whatever they do. The second most used is probability and statistics, which they kind of expanded with Project Maths to basically recognize the fact that it is the thing that most people use, so adjusting to the modern world. And then you've got, algebra, calculus, geometry. Okay, so that's our couple of minutes, enough time for people to join in. Okay, so just a quick, this is our Facebook page, like the fan page, LeavingCertMathsGuide. That's where we're all available. So, if you want to message, contact, or whatever, this is the place to do it. And we basically post lessons and that kind of thing here. Then we have our YouTube page, YouTube channel. Again, LeavingCertMathsGuide, which is where this is being broadcast, with Google Hangouts, making it nice and easy. Now, on this channel, we kind of organize things. So you've got a numbers playlist, which has, was it 18 or various videos, lessons covering the number strand. And then we have another playlist for statistics and probability. Then we have the Turbo series, where we just have lessons covering, so this is Turbo Algebra covers algebra, Turbo Calculus covers calculus. It doesn't cover the topics in as great a depth as, probability, statistics, and numbers, but it gets most of the main ideas across, and it does it kind of quickly. We also have the banker series. So here we just talk about which questions come up very regularly. So these are the topics, yeah, as I said, nearly always get asked. So if you're going to do any study, or if you're going to do any preparation for the exam, the bankers are your best bet. They're the ones that you can kind of go, okay, if I spend a week doing, say, complex numbers, then I will get rewarded for having done so. Because 80, 90% of the time, that comes up. So you get to show off that you have actually prepared. While there are many other topics which you could do but would not come up. So the fact that you'd actually spent all that time preparing for them doesn't get noticed. Back here. The strategy section is also, I mean, and it's also, there's also enough time, I would say, now, but it's kind of running out. This is about good ways to study problems that people have with exams and stuff. So this is my favorite one, the Study Less, Study Smart. He's a professor in, I think, psychology. He talks about, you know, how the brain works, how basically, I mean, the takeaway I remember was something along the lines that we don't work nonstop. So he talks about a student he knew who failed and then was repeating and going, well, this time I'm not gonna fail again. And so she studied like 5 hours a day every day, but failed again. So then he was explaining why, how could that happen? And it's because she'd sit there and she'd just work and work and work, which is not the way humans work. Humans operate, how the brain functions. Essentially, and they've done studies of this, that I think it was something like we can work and absorb information for something like half an hour. And then after that, we start fading. So we can still have the book open in front of us. But if we then do tests, we find that actually you don't remember what you saw for the rest of the 5 hours. So basically, if the person had just worked for half an hour, taken a maybe 10-15 minute break, and then did another half hour, they would have actually done more work than if they'd sat there for 5 hours. So that is, it's fascinating, and he's an absolute expert on this. So, you know, far better that you hear the actual evidence and actual way the brain operates from an expert rather than just me. So, I mean, it's kind of handy because that kind of matches with the way, fortunately, that I would have operated anyway. I would tend to kind of work for a little bit, then maybe have a cup of tea, think about what I'd done for the last half hour. Did that make sense? Kind of, you know, yeah, just review. And then I'd be refreshed. And then I might do another one or two little spurts of half an hour to an hour. But this basically says that was a good way to operate. But here, you know, there's also other stuff. like how to predict questions, habits of successful college students, because there are so many people studying. These guys have looked and come up with best practice about how to study. And this applies not just to maths, but to any course. So you can use these ideas in college and in whatever. And if you use, and I don't know all this stuff, but if you basically picked up some of this stuff, you will cruise through college, do really well, and not be particularly stressed because you would be very much in control of the situation. So that's just what's available on the YouTube channel, like for this, on our YouTube channel. I want to look, let's see how much, whether I've been going on for too long. That's only 8 minutes. So numbers. So if I just click on numbers, here are the lessons. It is basically, you've got a couple of bankers within numbers, which I've talked about on the Facebook page. Complex numbers, as I've mentioned even in this, comes up nearly every year. The reason it does is because there's a chunk of material there. So it's not just add numbers, subtract, which a lot of the arithmetic section is pretty much. With complex numbers, you have to introduce what complex numbers are. You have to learn about what the operations are, so you know how to add them, subtract, multiply, divide. Division is tricky. So unless you've studied, unless you've done the lessons, you won't be able to divide. So that's a great question for me to ask in an exam, because that just immediately shows me the people who did study and those who didn't. And then there's also Argand diagrams and some other little things as well. So there's a big chunk of material related to complex numbers. So that's all covered in this lesson. I mean, it actually gives you a username password to access the lessons in the LeavingCertMathsGuide system. Then another banker is sequence and series, because there you have to learn about the notation, you have to learn about terms in a sequence, about the formula that allows you to add a whole set of numbers. So again, if you hadn't studied, you won't be able to understand what the question is talking about because you don't know the notation. You won't be able to answer the question because if you don't know the formula, it will be far, far harder. And the other banker is volumes and areas. So again, questions about work out the area, work out the volume. That's asked pretty much every year. So where were we? But there are also other things. So stuff like indices, checking results and errors. These are all nice and easy questions. So then these topics are nowhere near as complicated or involved as the banker questions, which take several weeks, or at least a couple of weeks to do. Since there are multiple layers, so you'd really want to give yourself maybe a day or two to learn about the notation, to learn the basic jargon, then give yourself a day or two to learn the secret sauce, in a way, the magic formula, the key result within the subject. So with complex numbers, that would be probably division, but also representing the numbers on an Argand diagram. So the really weird new components of the topic. But like changing units, tax, and universal social charge, they're just add, multiply. I mean, they're not mathematically hard or complicated. But so you can zoom through the non-banker ones pretty quickly. And as I was saying before, there are multiple ones of these, so there might be a question on PRSI. But so there are multiple ones of these easier questions. So you don't know whether it's going to be asked. There's probably going to be one asked on between the whole 3, 4, 5 easy topics, but you don't know which one. While the bankers, you're pretty sure are going to come up. So that's the main point, I suppose, in this lesson, because now we want to be moving on to probability and statistics, since there are other number strand is only one of 5 strands. Yes, the number strand has maybe double the marks of other strands, so we want to spend time on that. But at the same time, I think we've gone through the bankers. I'm not going to here go through each of the smaller topics. At the same time, one second, there's more. Oh yeah, so these were the lessons. I think these were probably created 1 or 2 years ago. But there's also, along with the lessons on the numbers guide, there were also problems. Actually, I should add that onto this page, because it does actually exist. Yeah, so here I just talked about the numbers strand. Here, yeah, so I just need to add this to the front page, but it's not hidden. You can go into the channel. So you've got the problem sets with solutions for probability, problems and solutions for statistics, problem sets and solutions number strand. Yeah, so that's the one. So I was talking about the videos, the lessons, but actually there's, along with that, a set of problem sets and solutions. So you can work your way through the problem sets and solutions to see whether you are actually able to do the material. If you understand the lessons, if you understand the material, you should be able to do the problem sets and solutions. But if you don't do problems and solutions, you don't really know whether you've understood it or not. Because it's very easy to just nod and go, oh yeah, I get that. But did you really? Now, also, you've got your book. So your books have problem sets and solutions as well. So, you can work with those also. So, I'll actually add these to the front page because the problem sets have been kind of hidden. One second. I just want to see if there any questions. Okay. So then this is the numbers guide. So if you get access to the numbers guide, which is the set of lessons from us, from the LeavingCertMathsGuide, there you can see, we start with an introduction about numbers. We look at where you can check to see we have a look on the exam to see whether the number strand actually comes up, where you can get model solutions. We check the syllabus to see, what the syllabus has, what it says we need to know, and that kind of stuff. So then we get actually to the material. So there's types of numbers, like real numbers, irrational numbers, whole numbers, and so on. Because at times they ask you, is this a real number? Is this irrational, and that kind of stuff. Some basic maths, BODMAS, scientific notation, complex numbers, that falls within number systems. And as I said, that is a banker. This is the part that you get access to. I give the username and password. If you use the username and password given, you only get the complex numbers part. You don't get all the lessons. So where was I? Patterns includes the patterns content. That also is a banker. I'll have to check whether geometric series are still part of the syllabus. So then you have indices, which I might actually move into the number systems. So it's like indices would be 2 to the power of x. So 2 to the power of x multiplied by 2 to the power of y, how indices behave, which is slightly different to numbers you're more familiar with. Then there's arithmetic. So remember I was talking about, so these are all easier, very specific, simple things. So you should fly through these pretty quickly. Oh, compound interest is interesting. Income tax, how you check. So you work out your answer, and then you also work it out backwards and check to see that you get the same answer, that kind of thing. So I suppose broadly, there are actually 3 big blocks within the number strand and number systems. So I could move indices into the number systems block. Then there's arithmetic. So there you'd have, I'd call the just manipulating numbers. So you'd have changing units, interest rates, but otherwise tax, costing. It's just adding, multiplying, subtracting, dividing. I mean, mathematically, there's nothing particularly different. Then you have areas, volumes, length. So there, most of them are, you have access to the tables book, and the tables book gives you the formula for the various objects that you need to work with. So, you'd have I don't know, a triangle, a square, a circle, a cylinder. So for each one of those, you'd have expressions telling you what the volume is in terms of the height or and the radius and the length, that kind of thing. So essentially, you just use the formulas from the tables book, plugging in the numbers for the particular question that you're doing. So people tend to do pretty well with volumes and areas. So it's not much of a, people don't tend to have problems with that. So that's all there is to the number strand. And once you've done that, as I said, that's like 35% of the entire marks in the math syllabus for ordinary level. We also have past papers. So these match with the actual official model solutions. And you can see how many questions there are from the number strand. So in 2012, there were 6 questions. And here in 2013, there were 7. Now, we only have 2 sets of model solutions because there's no point really doing more and more model solutions. I mean, the point of having model solutions is so that you can, it's for your own self-confidence, so that you can kind of see, oh, I could have been able to do that. It's like I can, what I like to think of, it's like I can teach you the tables. And so you learn how to add a couple of numbers. And I asked you, what's 8 multiplied by 7? And you go, 56. But it's maths when I teach you how to multiply. When you can multiply any 2 numbers. So I can give you 752 times 311. 2 numbers you've never multiplied together in your life before. But you know how to multiply them together because you're taught how to multiply. Likewise, here, there are countless questions that I can ask you. So looking at one particular question, then 2 particular questions, that doesn't show that you're now able to answer the 100,000 or countless questions that I could ask you. It's also just to show you that, the number, this material does get asked. So what you're studying is relevant, is what comes up in the exam. So that's the numbers guide, or this is the numbers guide, with the lessons and the model solutions. There's actually a guide, as I say again and again. So when we look on the Facebook page, it says you've got the syllabus, which is breaks maths into various strands, and for each strand, we have a guide. It says the same thing on the Facebook page. You've got the syllabus. Oh, sorry. On the Facebook page, I have the strategy in guides. Because I wanted to also mention the central role of the importance of strategy. As always, because the Facebook page came after, or the YouTube page came after the Facebook page. This is the page on the LeavingCertMathsGuide.ie. Here you can get access. You just click get access now. I think it's something like $14.99, so a fraction of the price of a single grind. It describes, if you play the video, it goes through what the numbers guide is. As I said, the main takeaway is it's like $14.99. You have access till after the exams, and it also comes with a 1 week money back guarantee. So basically, you can sign up for it. Then, if you kind of find it's not really what you want, and as I mentioned in the video, you don't have to give any explanation. You can just say, I want my money back. So you can have access for a whole week of lessons and ask for your money back. And of course you'll get it. I mean, it's not just you can ask for it. So that's basically the end of numbers, or art of us focusing and just working on the number strand. We're now going to be moving on to, I think, statistics. So I think I'll do statistics first, and then probability. And if you have any questions, I probably said it before, but I just want to know how I'm mentioning it again. You can ask questions on both the Facebook page and the YouTube page. It would be handy if you just ask the questions below the relevant video. So like if it's a question on algebra and there's a lesson on, you say, turbo algebra, you can just comment underneath that, just saying, why is this, blah blah, because that way we can just have a collection of questions and answers below each video, which should help others. So thanks for turning up, and on to statistics from next weekend.